Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here are your hosts, Joe Kuzma and Brian E. Roach.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name's Joe Kuzma, and I am joined by my brother from another mother, Mr. Brian E. Roach, the host who doesn't like toast. What's going on, Brian?
I realize that in these dire circumstances and in the current situation that we find ourselves in, despite my distaste for burnt bread, I may have to eat some.
And you know what? I was joking. I don't know. I didn't mention it, I don't think, on this program, so I'll mention it now. Anyone ever saw, I think it was 1992, The Demolition Man came out, Sylvester Stallone, Wesley Snipes, and it was set in San Angeles, which was like a mega metropolis combination of San Diego and Los Angeles in the year 2032. And they got rid of all contact sports. So there's no football or anything else, and then people aren't shaking hands. They used to do that thing where their hands got kind of close, but they were almost waving, like a wax on, wax off type thing. And and swearing was outlawed, and you got fines through the thing, and there wasn't toilet paper. The only surviving chain of food, too, was Taco Bell during their, quote, franchise wars. We are heading that direction. People may be eating rats in underground sewers and stuff, Brian.
Yeah, anything is possible. I have to give my wife a little credit and shout out because, we give everybody's been giving the props to the healthcare workers, and rightfully so. But retail workers are out there still being on the front lines, and people are nuts, man. She's out there working retail and getting people their groceries or whatever the hell they buy at the store she's in, and sacrificing potentially her health. So I give her props for that as well.
Yes. So, I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, those folks are out there. I think of them, too. They're definitely, if you're in the Sam's Clubs and Walmarts and Costco's and everything like that, there isn't a whole lot of social distancing going on. You know what I was doing, Brian? I was in Dollar Tree because I'm like, you know what? Well, there's a bajillion Dollar Trees, number one, and then everything's $1. So, I mean, it's very, for the budget conscious. But I couldn't find flour like at the end of the week. When this all hit the fan, I'm like, man, I should just get some flour because I could bake some stuff if I need to or whatever. I've been getting a little handier around the kitchen and stuff. What happened is kind of almost out of necessity. I'll buy bananas for like my kid, and sometimes she'll tear through them in like 2-3 days, and then some days they just sit around, and instead of letting them go to waste, I'll make some banana bread. So on the thought process of that, I was like, well, if I get some flour, I could do some things. Well, of course, flour was completely gone for whatever reason from Wally World, and I went over, and I'm in Dollar Tree, and lo and behold, guess who has flour? So I went there. I figured, hey, there's only like maybe at most a dozen people in the store at any given time, so I'll hedge my. I'm still being cautious. I got to go out there, and we got to have things for the household, but at the same time, I'm going to hedge my bets on stuff like that. But I digress. What do we want to say? It's like desperate times call for desperate measures. I don't know that we're that desperate right now, but it's good to see that people are practicing. At least it looks like there's not a whole lot of anything going on out in the roads and the streets, and places are operating at different hours, and things are being adjusted. So I hope, at least for most of our listeners, you find a little bit of an escape here. We do have football news, and that's about the only kind of sports news that's going on right now. And it's good that we got some big Steelers news since we last spoke. We talked about there was Shazier on the retirement list. Ramon Foster retired. We saw some different guys get released, like Mark Barron. Since then, there has been huge news, such as Cameron Canaday getting re-signed. Well, massive news. Well, hey, you're bringing the long snapper back. That's good for some consistency. I know some people are like, get rid of Jordan Berry. And it's like, hey, he hasn't been – okay, everybody has a bad punt every now and then. I could see if they find somebody to upgrade at that position. He'll likely have camp competition. But it's like, when a guy's making like $1.5 million or whatever, that's chump change when it comes to the NFL. You're not saving that much more money by dumping him out on his posterior out the door. And he's been the holder for Boswell, I think, for pretty much the whole time. And Boz has been here too. So it's like, hey, just kind of cool your heels on that. Leave some consistency there. I'm cool with the candidate news. But we do have other things and stuff to talk about too.
Absolutely. There's lots of great news. And one, as some of our commenters noted on the last podcast, one happened just after we finished recording.
Yeah.
And to me, that's some exciting stuff, because how long will it be until we earn the trifecta? But, Derek Watt has come aboard as a Steeler. So we have Derek and we have TJ. And, like I said, all we need is a JJ to complete the set, and we can just we can call ourselves Steelers Watt.
Steeler what? What? That was actually, it was surprising news. And I'm going to tell you, I look at the free agent list with like a grain of salt, because I have no idea what these guys are going to command in the open market. And, I wasn't really looking at a fullback. I had no idea how serious Roosevelt Nix's injury may have been from last year, but we do know what it's like when the Steelers don't have a fullback. And I was kicking the can on if they would actually keep both of them, to be completely honest. I know people are like, man, some teams don't even roster a fullback, but the Steelers have had double before. They had Will Johnson and David Johnson would kind of float as an H-back, meaning, he would line up as a tight end and block sometimes. And then they also had Rosie Nix and David Johnson at the same time. And now they only had Nix. Nix went to the Pro Bowl. They've only had Nix the last few seasons. We saw what it was like to not have a fullback in the backfield. And, I shared on the Throwback Thursday segment on our website yesterday his very improbable catch. I don't even know if Ben knew who he was throwing to. I think he just saw like a black dot out of his peripheral vision when he threw it to Roosevelt Nix, and he made he plowed whoever was covering him. It was Tony Jefferson with the Ravens. And he makes like this very improbable catch for a touchdown. They win that game 39-38. That was 2 years ago now. So it was like, I don't think anybody knew Rosie could catch the ball until then. But it's kind of sad. I don't really know what happened. Was it like a knee injury or something like that? You hate to see it. You hate to see guys lose jobs because of injury, and particularly there are certain positions where they're razor thin. You're only keeping one guy on the roster in that position, kickers and punters especially, and long snappers, things of that nature, fullback as well. So as soon as the Derek Watt news came, I was like, maybe they know something we don't know, or something that hasn't really been. It's not like everybody's going out and interviewing Roosevelt Nix and getting updates on his health like they are with Ben Roethlisberger. So I felt kind of bad that you kind of lose your opportunity, maybe lose your job because of an injury. I hope maybe he lands on his feet, or in the case that maybe he doesn't play football again, I hope maybe he has like one of these insurance policies or whatever he could cash out, and he's comfortable with his non-playing years into the foreseeable future.
Oh, absolutely. Rosie was great, so we kind of wish him the best. And not that I want to jump off the fullback train, but as I know you're aware, yes. For once, we didn't miss this news. Some new news just came in.
Well, yeah. Well, wait a minute before you get to that. The reason
I want to. I'm excited. I'm a child.
I know. But I thought maybe that Derek Watt was going to be a guy. Hey, they said, hey, he has better hands, softer hands, whatever. You could line him up at tight end, blah blah blah. So, well, this is going to help hedge the bet on the whole needing to draft a tight end, needing to bring in another guy, needing to bring Nick Vannett back or whatever. I guess maybe Nick Vannett isn't coming back now. I will not steal your thunder.
Does not look like maybe he will. Unless they've really given up on on Gentry. But the Steelers are assigning Eric Ebron 2 years, $12 million. Look, you got to give the Steelers credit for the way they handle free agency. Unless you just are negative, and the only reason that you're happy with free agency is if you A, overspend, and B, spend on things you don't really need or can't afford.
Yeah. Well, there's all kind of stuff. We picked a prime time, Brian, to do this.
Man, did we ever? You go with this one.
Well, I told you the reason we weren't going to do this yesterday on Thursday. I said, you know what? Friday by like 4:00, there's going to be a whole lot of crap going down. Somebody that we also looked at in the pre-draft process. I can't believe this. This is an inter-division trade here. Steelers and Ravens. Steelers are going to send a 5th-round pick for next year's draft to acquire defensive lineman Chris Wormley and a 7th-round pick from in the same year in 2021 from the Ravens. That usually never happens. You know what I mean?
Not usually, yeah.
Hey, you know what? For they lost Javon Hargrave, so yeah. This is going to be interesting here because Wormley definitely was playing a defensive tackle position. Now I got to see what all technique and everything else that comes out of this and what people are going to say. But the Ravens have been making some moves on their own, and this guy was more than likely just he wasn't going to make the roster at the end of maybe camp or whatever. Also based on whatever they do in the draft, there's a lot of competition there. So or they think he's a complete bum and will just they have him figured out and they just will be happy if we play him. I don't know how that works when you go interdivision rivals like that, but Steelers definitely had a need here, and they end up bringing this guy in who is an athletic freak, and that's pretty exciting news too. We didn't even get to the tight end thing. We'll circle back around that. It's just like we haven't even gotten to the other news. What we got to was Cam Canada.
Yeah, I know, man. Look, and we kind of, because these things happen to hit at exactly the same sort of moment, give or take, we kind of glossed over the Eric Ebron signing, but that's a good signing for them. It really is a good signing for them. Because as both the professor and I have been saying all along, despite all the Adam Troutman fans out there in the universe, this tight end group is not good. It's weak. And there's nobody that is an outstanding tight end. So the Steelers have now put themselves in a position where tight end is simply not a concern for them in this draft. It allows them to address other things. And if somebody falls to them in a later round, fine. But they're in a much better shape, and it also really does kind of help to define, the direction they may go in the draft. And he was a productive guy last year. He's had his issues with drops when he was with the Lions, but here's a guy that I think he's got obviously enough experience. This is a solid veteran type signing for them, and the kind of thing that they do. And let us not say this outlandish. Please, no one bring up the LG comparisons, because it's not the same
I almost said the same thing about Ladarius Green. I loved the Ladarius Green signing. I was always a fan of his with the Chargers. It was just very unfortunate that he had whatever was going on with his foot, which may have just been, a cloud cover for larger stemming issues with concussions too. We'll never know. But I mean, we're a year removed from Eric Ebron being a Pro Bowl wide receiver, and that was with Andrew Luck as his quarterback. So when you take a look at what he had throwing to him last year, as far as his catch percentages or whatever. I know it hasn't been great over the years. He had a very slow start to his NFL career, but he caught 13 touchdowns in 2018. Give me half of that and I'll be happy. Now somebody's going to be like, "Oh, great, another guy with catching the ball issues," because that's been like the tag on Vance McDonald too. But when you give him somebody like a healthy Ben Roethlisberger, I feel that's a game changer. It's a heck of a lot different than Jacoby Brissett or Brian Hoyer throwing passes your way. So the Colts had their own problems at the quarterback position last year. That's the reason why they went out and signed Phillip Rivers. So we're going to see how this plays out. It was weird because I was honestly thinking Jack Doyle was like in the back of my brain as maybe a target with the Steelers, just thinking about some of these blue-collar guys that'll chip in and maybe able to catch the ball. But it's not beyond Mike Tomlin, as we've said before, to target athletic freaks. You're looking at a former 10th overall first-round draft pick back in 2014, 6'4", 253. You don't go 10th overall as a tight end unless you got some type of goods. We'll see what the Steelers get out of this. He's not going to be relied upon to start unless, Vance isn't healthy. And there's the other side of that. I want to bring this up real quick. There's no doubt this is going to show up in the comments. Why are they keeping Vance? Vance got restructured. I think it was it Chris Mueller? Who put that out? Somebody put it out that his restructure actually was almost like a pay cut, sort of, kind of. So, here's a guy that's making a little bit less money in Vance McDonald for this upcoming season, but he played the most snaps of anyone who isn't on the offensive line. Now, offensive linemen, they usually don't come out of the game. They usually don't come off the field. They only miss games due to injury or suspension or illness or something of that nature, of which there was some of that too, even with Marquise Pouncey. So when you think about it, Vance McDonald played more than any other tight end, any Steelers running back, any Steelers wide receiver, and most certainly Steelers had their issues with the revolving door at the quarterback position. So when you talk about a guy that really only missed one game and then played more snaps than anyone else in like the skill positions, I mean, that's a pretty big deal. So I don't want to hear the health tag on him. He was overall relatively healthy last year. And I know Ebron was a little banged up last year too, but over the past several seasons before that, he was a 16-game guy, even going back to 2017, his last year in Detroit, and including his Pro Bowl year. So the way the Steelers had operated when they had Vance and Jesse James, or even when you go back to like Heath and Spaeth, or any combination where they had two guys that could chip in, they're usually playing about maybe between 50 and 60% of the offensive snaps. They're not always on the field at the same time. They will alternate and rotate them. So that can only bode well for both of these guys being healthy and being on the field and available on game days.
Absolutely. Look, I think the Ebron signing is a great thing. I think he's going to fit in real well. I know that you've seen the tweet by Josina Anderson about talking to him. And this is just classic Tomlin. Again, talking to the guy and telling him, I've had my eye on you since college. Yeah. And I'm sure he has. This is one of the things the Steelers do consistently. It's part of the reason they go to pro days where they really probably have no thought that they're going to be in a position to draft the guys they're looking at. It's so that when they become available down the road, they've got a sense of those guys. And so I like this signing a lot.
And as do I, but Brian, we always talk about it. We were banging our drum about what maybe one of the big needs was, and everybody's talking about all their outlandish ideas about quarterback and wide receiver one and running backs and this and that. We were talking about a position that maybe only you and the professor find sexy, and I think both of us. Well, I'll let you announce it since you love this so much. I absolutely. I'm floored. I love this move, but I'll give it to you. You can go right ahead and announce it.
Maybe are we going to call him the Wiz?
I don't know. We had a Wiz before. We had a Whizzer too.
Well, that's true. We probably had many of those. But the signing of Wisniewski is. I mean, this is a signing. First of all, here's as you note by the contract itself and what the guy himself has tweeted out. Here's a guy who simply flat out wanted to play in Pittsburgh, hometown kind of guy. He's from the area. He's been a Steelers fan. He wanted to come home and play in Pittsburgh. The deal is pennies for a solid, potentially starting quality guard who also can play that swing role for this team. I love this move. It's great. And when you combine it with the other W that you were talking about, the trade with the Ravens for Wormley, this is a situation where now in kind of a matter of almost minutes, the Steelers have essentially shored up almost every weakness they had. With Wormley, you address the loss of Javon Hargrave, and I'm not saying Wormley is as good as Hargrave was, but it gives you the depth you needed at that position, and he can be that kind of guy who eats up blocks and helps defend the run that they need to have in the middle. You've got you make up for Finney being lost, and with Ramon Foster retiring by getting Wisniewski. I can't say anybody's name.
Wisniewski, yes.
Wisniewski, okay. And then, you address the tight end depth by signing Eric Ebron. A guy who's still only 27 and is flat out loaded with talent. Yeah, I know he's got drop issues, and that's a potential issue, but he's got the talent to still be considered a threat. And all that means is in certain two tight end sets, in certain other conditions, you've got a guy who will open things up for the wide receivers and give Ben somebody else to target. And what all this means is the Steelers are now in much better position to be able to tailor their draft the way that we always say they do, but sometimes it gets impacted by need. BPA, man, best player available.
Oh yeah. Well, let's not jump that far down already. Let's rewind, man. You didn't give enough love to Steve Wisniewski, man. And you know what? You got to be like a Polsky.
There's a reason.
Why?
Because of where he's from.
Oh well. Who cares? You got to be a Polsky like me in order to say the Wisniewski and get it right. This guy, he's going to be all over Permanis. He's going to be all over the pierogies and everything else over there in Pittsburgh. But I was jumping around. Yeah, I think he started every game for the Chiefs last year. Oh, here it goes. I have it up. No. We didn't even talk about Derek Watt hardly either. Let me rewind to Derek Watt. I will not give him any credit, no jersey buying. I don't care what number he wears or anything until he acknowledges that his initials are DJ and he starts referring to himself as in an acronym or nickname like his brothers do. Otherwise, he does not exist to me. Okay?
I think that's fair. He needs to be DJ. But, maybe here's the thing. Now, do we need to open up new Subway franchises in Pittsburgh?
I don't know. Derek John Watt. Come on, man. DJ. I understand you don't throw the ball. He doesn't to him much. You don't run the ball much, but he's caught like 5 touchdowns in 4 years, which is more than what's usually asked of most fullbacks. And it's definitely a missing dynamic in the running game, which is why I came back to that, because now you got this guy that you can move around. You got 2 bona fide starting tight ends, both guys that could rip the seam in Vance McDonald and Eric Ebron. You got Derek Watt, who could even go out in the flat or a little wheel pass or something. I mean, it's exciting, and you still have Jalen Samuels, you still have James Conner, you still have Benny Snell football. The offense is looking loaded, brother. I mean, Ramon Foster, I like the big ragu, and he was responsible for a lot of communication and stuff. I think Wisniewski, I think the Steelers will still look to draft someone, as what you were starting to get toward, because this is what they do. They usually sign a veteran and then draft somebody. So as you're looking at this, well, they're not going to draft another fullback. I would highly doubt they draft another tight end unless it's a best player available, but most certainly I could see them definitely bringing in a young buck to be there on the offensive line and try and develop and maybe even compete for a spot, depending on, hey, if that's the second round draft pick, then maybe depending on who's there. It's a very deep draft for offensive linemen as it is for wide receivers as well. So it's going to be very exciting to see where all the chips fall here. And don't forget they also had Zach Gentry from last year. He's still somebody that they may not be done with, probably shouldn't be. He's still under a rookie deal. He was only a 5th round pick. And the same thing with like Isaiah Buggs, but they're not trying to rely solely on, Wormley coming in probably and maybe being a starter. He may be a guy that rotates in as that 3-4 defensive end. And we kind of heard something like that from Cam Hayward recently as well. If you got a healthy to it, that means your next guy who could also be a nose tackle is Alu. You still got Big Dan McCullers, who has improved, I believe, leaps and bounds compared to where he was under Carl Dunbar the last 2 years. So you're filling in a lot of the gaps now. And I'm not as concerned with, some of the guys that they lost. Okay, Mark Barron, they lost. Let's see what Ulysses Gilbert can do. You lose Roosevelt Nix, but Derek Watt is also a special teams ace as well. So you're at least on the same same level playing field as you were prior to free agency or as some of these other moves go. So I wanted to go back to Wisniewski specifically because there was a period in time here where the Oakland Raiders, formerly Oakland Raiders, were considered one of the best offensive lines in football, and he was part of that. And he plays center as well as playing left guard, which is where the big ragu was. So you have a guy here that's is he 30 or 31? So he's March 22nd. He just around the corner, 2 days from now, he will turn 31. And that's not necessarily old, but I think was Foster 33 going on 34, maybe somewhere in that ballpark. So you get a guy for 2 years. 2 years, $2.85 million. He's only got a a base of a million or 105, 105 million. That's just ridiculous for me that a team that just won the Super Bowl would let a guy like this walk that they needed on that offensive line. This is huge. You got somebody who's a veteran. You got somebody with loads of experience. He's won a Super Bowl with both Philadelphia and Kansas City, and he's capable of playing guard or center. I would even assume he could probably play tackle as well. He could probably swing around the whole thing. So at the very worst case scenario of his tenure, he could be a backup at the worst at all these spots where the Steelers really needed it. That's where B.J. Finney was in it. And now I see, B.J. Finney got like what, $9 million to go up to Seattle. I think that happened after we last talked too. 2 years, $9 million. I was scratching my head. Why didn't the Steelers do this? Or it's like a maximum of $9 million. Maybe it was like 8 or something, and then there's incentives and roster bonuses and whatnot. But I'm like, damn, that's cheap. You know what I mean? No, this is a cheap deal. This fits under everything, and he's happy to come and compete with probably the team he grew up with, because he's originally from the Pittsburgh area. So that's pretty awesome. And his only real dud year was with Jacksonville, and you know who Jacksonville, besides having Blake Bortles as their quarterback, they were also handing the rock off to T.J. Yeldon and Denard Robinson, the offensive weapon, if you remember that, and guys like Toby Gerhardt, and they weren't a good team in 2015. So I kind of look past that, and when you look at putting the rest of this together with the offensive line too, Matt Filer was tendered. We talked about first or second round tenders versus original round, which you can't do an original round on the undrafted guys. You get squadoo. So Matt Filer was tendered with the second round. So I wanted to call it a tag, but it's not the same thing. So you get where I'm at. Restricted free agent, second round tender, Matt Filer. So you got the right tackle coming back, or he'll at least compete with the guys behind him. Chuks Okorafor, potentially Zach Banner was also brought back on a 1-year deal. So you got those two guys, and then we'll talk about the other guy on defense that was tendered here in a second. But it looks like on offense, Brian, that this is all coming together. If there's anything the Steelers add as far as a rookie, they're not going to have to lean on that guy to come in and be a day one starter.
No, and I really look. I think that this flurry of signings, I think, in my view, really primes them to draft an interior offensive lineman or a tackle with the second round pick. Somebody that they can bring in to provide, again, that a learning curve, but maybe even compete to start at one of those positions. But I think it puts them in a great position if the right guy is there. And if not, hey, it also puts them in a great position to say, all right, great, let's take a great wide receiver because it's so deep, or let's take a running back, or let's do any of those things. Prepare for the future. Because, as we know, as we've said, even though I thoroughly enjoyed watching James the Woodchuck Connor Chuck Wood in his workout video that we were all laughing about. Yeah, man, he was definitely chucking wood. I think he's trying out for a Geico commercial, but I'm not sure.
Well, he wasn't just chucking it. It was a over the head throw, over behind his back, no look. I mean, it was a giant pile of wood. The guy was going down, scooping, doing the traditional scoop you would do with the squat, and just showing that leg and back strength. I mean, I was salivating at that. Looking at it, I was like, dang, Absolutely. And, even though that's great and it's fun to watch, I think, for the most part, we pretty much agree. They're probably not going to, offer James Conner an extension at the end of this year unless something really dramatic happens, because he's just been, unable to stay on the field. This is a real prove-it year for him. So it gives them the opportunity to prepare themselves for that in advance. It just puts them in a much better position, and it makes the Minkah trade all that much better. Because, again, now you've got this first-round talent guy who is definitely a higher level player than you probably would have gotten at 18. And on top of that, you're still in a good position in this draft to do things to protect yourself and to improve yourself going forward. Man, I got to come back to the guys we've already talked about. Chris Wormley, 63rd highest graded interior defender in 2019, according to Pro Football Wizards. Focus. Okay. I'll take it.
Yeah.
Especially, kind of playing, I believe he was playing some spot duty too. I don't think that he was, let me see, I had it up, and of course I already closed out of it, I had it up, and I had it up right next to the screen that I had. He did appear in all 16 games, but again, you're talking about a guy on a defensive line that's, clogging up gaps and things of that nature. Still somehow came away with 33 combined tackles, 17 solo, got to the quarterback 6 times and 2 tackles for loss, 2 passes defensed. I want to see, it's not necessarily comparable, but I have to look up where Javon Hargrave was on that because half of his year was a little different there. So he ended up with 60 total tackles, 13 games credited to a start. I think there was only like 6 for Wormley. 7 tackles for loss, the same amount of quarterback hits, and no passes defensed. Okay. I'm sold. Yep. So, I like that. The other one was Ebron is sitting here also by the gurus at PFF. It was the tight end leaders in yardage per routes run in 2019 with a minimum of 50 targets. Of course, George Kittle sits at the king of the mountain here with 3.11. So 3.11 for Kittle per. This is yards per route run, okay? Mark Andrews, 289. And then as you start going down, Travis Kelce, 223. Jared Cook, 207. Ebron comes in right after that at 178, which is more than the 169 by Zach Ertz or the 167 by Hunter Henry or the highest paid tight end in the NFL right now, Austin Hooper at 165. Sign me up, yes, please, every day and twice on Sunday. That all sounds good to me. Another note on Wormley, too, is he's still under a rookie contract. His base salary jumps a little bit this year in the final year of his rookie deal for 2020. So we'll see if this is just a short-term rental or something that goes a little more long-term. But as we said earlier, definitely somebody the Steelers looked at in their pre-draft processes many years ago. What was that, 2017 now? Jeez, oh man, I mean, time's just flying, isn't it? So
it is.
It just seems like we blinked and we just started this show yesterday sometimes, Brian. So it's just some it's some crazy stuff. Now, there are a few more things. Oh, by the way, Ebron's deal is 2 years, $12 million, so 6 apiece. He's making a little bit more of a chunk of change than Vance McDonald. This was kind of what we alluded to, and I think, the tight end market, I think the Steelers go and make this move and secure him because maybe the tight end group, they don't like what they see, just as you were saying with Adam Troutman, not liking what they see necessarily in some of these other position groups going into the draft, with the exception of offensive line. I think offensive line is very deep, but second round, I don't know that you're necessarily grabbing a tackle in the second round, and based on the value that's available, I think there's going to be some guards that are going to fall into that place. I wouldn't be too surprised if that ends up being their move. I don't know that we've said some stranger things too, like a J.K. Dobbins or something like that. None of that would hurt my feelings, but we got to focus over on the defense. You were starting with it a little bit. You were talking about Minkah Fitzpatrick. I'm looking at who's playing alongside him. I have absolutely no problem with Terrell Edmunds. I do have a major issue, however, though, if one of those two guys goes down, and the Steelers are bringing back Jordan Dangerfield on a 1-year deal that may not even mean he makes it to the final 53-man roster, which here's a guy that's biting and clawing his entire NFL career off and on practice squads and active rosters. So he's someone that is here as an insurance policy. I think this kind of signals too. You look at what else is there, and the cupboards are bare when it comes to safety. The rest of the DBs, I think they're bountiful. They have lots here. We got Mike Hilton on a second-round tender, and we'll see what ends up happening there if they retain him. Even if he weren't retained, they at least have Cam Sutton. You still have Justin Lane as a viable backup candidate. Maybe they draft another guy. Who knows? But the safety position, there's some really good safeties that are coming out. Whether or not they're going to be sitting there when the Steelers draft is a whole other thing. I don't know that they'll target anyone in free agency, but some of these deals are just head scratchers. You see Andrew Sandeo going over and Carl Joseph both going over on only 1-year deals to the Cleveland Browns, who we said in the last episode desperately need some help there in their defensive backfield after just canning everybody, and they're only these are like prove-it deals for these guys. And we even saw this with Tyrann Mathieu, who lit things up with the Chiefs this year and was a large reason for their Super Bowl surge. Some of these guys are getting like really small deals, either in the length of the contract or the money that's being floated. I don't know if the Steelers going to have to figure out where the heck they're at with the cap. It seems like they create the cap's a myth, according to Eric Herman, one of our contributors, right? Yep. They keep creating space out of thin air, and I don't know. I don't think there's any more they could. I think they still got Hayward and somebody else, maybe even Tuitt, that they could go to and create some more. I don't know if they dip their toe into any of these free agents that are still kind of hanging around at the safety position. Look at that in the draft, because there's not a whole lot that's there. And I guess either the free agent pool or based on their draft position. But I think it's just something to think about. Will they pull the trigger for a guy who's going to probably be primarily just a backup? How much money is going to be allotted to that, and how high of a draft concern is that for them? I don't know, but it's definitely something I think that we're going to need to start talking about, because it's one, because of Minkah Fitzpatrick's arrival, that has been otherwise largely kind of ignored by most of the media, including ourselves, because we were so satisfied with that big trade last year. Now all of a sudden it's like, well, it's not a need. Well, I don't know necessarily. You still got to have a number of bodies that can cover, and you could see what the Steelers did with like Cam Kelly and others through the years. They still need somebody that's going to be playing that type of dimebacker role. So I guess Cam Sutton, he was doing that later in the year. We'll see if Hilton's officially back on the tender, et cetera, et cetera. But I still see some areas where they still need just a little bit of work, but they're much closer to the finish line in my estimation of what this makeup of this roster should look like, even going into August.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. We got a much better sense of things. And as we've been repeatedly saying, I think it gives them a lot more flexibility in the draft as to how they have to view things and where they need to look. This is a team, and as you said, it may even mean that if the right safety falls and there's value there, why not pull the trigger on him? But, I don't know the answer to that, because, as much as the haters want to hate on Terrell Edmunds, these are the same people who hated on Bud Dupree and in some cases continue to do so. That you got to give these guys that are these more raw type talents time to grow. And I think Edmunds will continue to grow, and we will just have to see how that transpires. I'm not down on Terrell Edmunds. So I don't know that they are either, but I don't know that they don't see different things. So you never know where they're going to go. It's a very interesting series of moves that I think puts the Steelers in a very good position, especially on what we all felt was the weakness of this team last year, because it was the offense. You bring Ben back, and just to note, there was an interesting article on the NFL.com there, that old the NFL intrawebs, where Ben said, "I'm not fat. My beard weighs 10 pounds," or something like that. He said he feels younger. This is the first time in. You take everything Ben says about injury with a little bit of a grain of salt, because yes, he does have the reputation for trying to get you to play the world's smallest violin for him. But he said this is the first time in years he's been pain-free throwing the football. And look, I also, as much as I say he has some of the drama in him, he's also a tough son of a gun, and he still plays through pain. And so it won't surprise me if that's in fact true, and that he feels younger and that he thinks he's going to come back and be better than ever. And I think it's reasonable to expect that you are going to have a quality Ben Roethlisberger show up in the season. I kind of feel like they're probably done with free agency. It won't surprise me if they try and lock Cam Hayward in sometime, either before training camp or before the end of training camp, to keep him as a Steeler for life. Won't surprise me if they try and restructure Stephon Tuitt again, but I think that's a little less likely, simply because of his injury history, and they may go be a little hesitant because he hasn't played a full season in a while. So we just have to wait and see. But it's a very exciting kind of change of events and turn of events, so to speak, and it's fun. Hey, something to talk about, and it's good talk.
Yeah, it is good talk, and you look at all of the things, regardless of how you feel about the 8-8 season last year. I think they were, down and out in many cases, and you got a lot of guys who got a lot of playing experience there that now get a franchise quarterback, future Hall of Famer coming back. And I know a lot of people are they're down on this for whatever reason, and they're saying Tommy John, and some people don't understand like what he exactly had that he had done. And of course he should be pain free. He didn't play all of last year either, so you're just hoping he comes back. I mean, Andrew Luck came back, Peyton Manning came back, and they put up numbers. You know what I mean? I understand the extent of the kind of injury and throwing arm and this and that, but no different with a neck and shoulder and everything else with the other two guys. It's all connected. You know what I mean? And you're mostly getting hit, unless you're Manning. When he used to he threw that ball in the dirt so fast, he didn't like contact, did he? That's the one thing I'll remember about Peyton Manning. But talk about Ben and his beard, 10-pound beard. He kind of reminds me of Gimli from Lord of the Rings. So, yeah, I mean, there you go. There's the 10 pounds. He'll shave it eventually, folks, and he'll be running around out there like a spring deer or whatever. So, or a fall deer. Which one runs faster? Whichever one's getting shot at, right? So, just looking up and down the depth chart, Brian. I mean, we're looking at. Let me see if they actually have anything with the depth chart. Sometimes it just says depth chart not available. Yeah, there's some blanks here, but let's fill them in. You got Marquise Pouncey, still a guy that's played at an all-pro level. I understand he had some low snaps and everything else. Okay. He had a lot of crap going on, too, and he came to the defense of his guys. I don't think he's, like, old and washed up or anything by any means. Now, look at this interior, man. You paired David DeCastro, and let's just say Wisniewski is the guy. Oh, man, do I like that pairing. Those three guys together. Matt Filer, like, surprisingly, was one of the best offensive linemen on the team last year. I think even the Wizards at PFF gave him like one of the higher grades, and you don't remember a whole lot of him being beat. I did see Al get beat here or there, and everybody does get beat. I mean, they're playing against other pro football players, other professionals. Yeah. We talk about this, but also with Zach Banner and Okorafor sitting there lying in wait, and Filer being able to kick in and play guard, which he did do. I like all of the different combinations on this offensive line. Any kind of the combinations you have right now. If you add somebody that's a nice blue chipper and a very high pedigree mid-round draft pick in the second round, holy cow, this is I think it puts it over the top for me. Only thing is, you look ahead at contracts and things of that nature, you're probably projecting is this somebody that ends up playing sooner rather than later? And is it somebody that we're going to, are we wasting the spot, or are we wasting time? That's what I think is going to be the main concern. But if they have anything there as far as an upgrade, they're going to go for it. I would even say that at tackle, I wouldn't be completely sold if they didn't feel they can grab a guy that was better than the combo of Filer, Banner, and Okorafor. Okorafor is still kind of a guy that is in development. You take a look at Ben, obviously under center. We talked briefly about the running backs with Connor, Samuels, and Snell. Kareth White, who flashed some too. We'll see how that is. Derek Watt. You still have Juju. You have Deontay Johnson, who jumped onto the scene, and you have James Washington. And then you still have Deion Kane, who is a taller, faster guy who... if you look at any of the catches he made last year, they were all big splash plays, and that's the type of guy that Ben likes to target. So I wouldn't discount any of this. This is looking very good. So you could start having like the emoji with the little hearts coming out of its eyes wherever they go in the draft, looking at offense. And I don't know that offense is necessarily got to be the need. We know what the defense was like last year. It turned the corner. We were banging our drums on that as well, that it would eventually get there, and it did. So you're talking about Cam Hayward. You're talking about Stephon Tuitt. You're talking about newly acquired Chris Wormley or Tyson Alualu, or maybe McCullers somewhere in there as part of a rotation too, either as the nose tackles or the ends. And you still have Isaiah Buggs, who was drafted last year. We'll see how how he works out. He kind of looked like almost like a poor man's Hargrave there at times too,
Yep.
where we got to see him. Obviously, you got the big feathers in your cap for keeping Bud Dupree and keeping T.J. Watt together. Those guys combined for 100 sacks last year. And then there's of course Vince Williams, a thumper and a veteran. You got Devin Bush. You got Ulysses Gilbert. I'm liking where all that is. You still have Ola. You still have Tazar Skipper. Whatever you add to that, it's going to be interesting. That backfield still. Steven Nelson, the glove, Joe Hayden back to the Pro Bowl. All looking good, man. We talked about Mike Hill, and we talked about Cam Sutton, we talked about Minka. And finally, I will say, people who want to say that Terrell Edmunds is a weak link, he was not supposed to start his rookie season. This guy got a crash course in the National Football League because Morgan Burnett was not a guy who could stay healthy and stay on the field. So just, and the other thing is he's got to get used to playing. It's another thing. He's been playing alongside like a mix and match of different people too. So, Sean Davis went out. People forget that. Cam Kelly was like penciled in there, and that was like, no, let's go get Minka. So, there's some different things. These guys didn't have a training camp together. I think some people started to get accustomed to where Minka and stuff was lining up too. He didn't get a training camp. He immediately came in and played like week 3 and played like every single freaking snap. That's just unheard of. And he really jumped in there head first, dove into the defense. So I think as these guys as a pair get to play more together, and let's not forget, like some of these plays, what was it? I keep going back to the Jets game. 2 games. With Terrell Edmunds. I go back to the Seahawks deal where we don't even know if this pass interference with the review and everything is going to stay, because it was initially temporary. They suspended these owner meetings and whatnot due to this, COVID-19 stuff that's going on. But I think Edmunds was done wrong on that week 2 play. I think the Steelers should have won that game against Seattle, and he kind of became a scapegoat there. And then the Jets game too. I mean, it was him and Hayden on Robbie Anderson, who somehow got his feet in and everything at the very back of the end zone on a deep ball. And it wasn't like anybody was really beat. This is, again, professional football players. You're in the place to make a play, and one or the other guy has to make a play for it to happen. So outside of that, I don't have like any big memory of anywhere where Edmunds. We used to complain about Mike Mitchell hitting like a truck, but not bringing guys down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't really think of a whole lot of where I see. I don't even think of a whole lot where I see a whole lot of missed tackles anymore from last year, 2019, with the Steelers defense. Very rare here or there. It's going to happen, but especially with Edmunds, nothing commits to memory outside of these few big, these plays that just went the other way. And when you look at who they had in the past, like Sean Davis and Artie Burns and Shamarko Thomas and Will Allen and Mike Mitchell and all the Antoine Blake. Hey guys. You're talking about weak links here. Edmunds stands head and shoulders above all of these guys, not only with his athletic talents, but what he's already done on the field. So cut him some slack, give him a break. He's entering year 3. This isn't somebody they necessarily need to go out and replace or do anything with. They still got him at least for another 2 years, potentially a 5th-year option if he should pan out to his pedigree of being a first-round pick and play at a very high level. And there's no reason at this time to think that, let's put it this way, he didn't really regress, in my opinion, and he's just kind of one of these guys that's waiting for his breakout. The equivalent or his mirror image on offense would be James Washington. You see both guys flash in camp, practice, et cetera, et cetera. You just need to see him do it on a consistent basis on Sundays.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself.
I know, and I had to take a breather, man. And it's not because I got anything going on here in my respiratory system. It's just because I am long-winded and I got on a tangent. So,
and I want to give you a compliment for the thrown-in sniffle right after saying COVID. It was very effective and subtle. And now people can be out there going, "Does Joe have COVID? Is he COVID? Is he infected? I don't know. Will we get infected from listening to the podcast? You won't, trust me." But
that was more like a deep breath, man. I mean, it's like after you get to a certain point, you get the dry throat, the cotton mouth thing going, and it's like, man, okay, I need a little swig of water over here. Not the bubbly. That's one thing I've avoided, Brian, is being under the influence of alcohol and recording this program. Because if that ever happens, there's going to be some stuff that is totally maybe un-Joe-like and doesn't necessarily fit the, what do you want to say, the parameters of where we usually stay in this program. And those
I did drop that one the other day. So
yeah, you did. I had to go back and do some magical editing work on that. But just like Mike Tomlin said many years ago, it was the Kansas City, the Chiefs Chargers game, and they didn't make the postseason. He's like, whatever I said is left in the basement with my wife and children, and that's pretty much where I leave some of these things. Because you know what, we get some of the same ideas that a lot of these other people do too, and it's like after I take a deep breath, like I just did now, and I re-examine and I recenter myself, I realize sometimes that I'm just making a little bit of a knee-jerk reaction, and it's not as bad as you would think. Unless it's Jarvis Jones. Then, of course, all bets are off. And I'm not one to not talk smack about some guys that are former Steelers now. And, there's no way of sugarcoating some of it, especially when you look at Jones. So, but you know what? I think we need to put a bow on this. There's not much else to talk about until the Steelers make another move in about 5 minutes after we're done.
Yeah, that'll be, I can't wait for the next shoe to drop, if in fact there is, although I think we can probably assume that they're done, but you never know. You never know.
And the other big thing too, Brian, that's going to help the Steelers tremendously this year, Tom Brady going to the Buccaneers.
Yeah, gotta love that. Look, get him in the NFC and get him out of our hair. And we don't play the NFC South this year, right?
No.
It's the NFC East. So
yeah.
I'm all about him going down to Tampa. That's fine. It's great. I love it.
I do too. Just get him out of the way, and and take whatever you want with you. And if you happen to make a Super Bowl, okay, we'll meet you then. You know what I mean? It's pretty much going to be, hey, they're going to have to face the Ravens and they're going to have to face the Chiefs. I think those are the two front runners going in this preseason. If anybody starts talking this jazz about the Cleveland Browns, just stop it. Just stop it. Just rewind to what we said last year, and they're just starting all over again with different things and stuff too. And that short window of, where these teams like Buffalo, the Chiefs, they have these quarterbacks, good quarterbacks, or even, I'll even say, I hate throwing around great for a guy that's only played like a handful of seasons so far, like Patrick Mahomes, but he's been pretty darn good too. So, but they're under rookie contracts and they could afford to put their eggs in other baskets and bring in some other guys. And this is that short run window that some of these teams have now. I talked about it with like the Seahawks, when they went to 2 Super Bowls, and you look at the Eagles able to do it with, a combo of Wentz and Foles, because they didn't have a whole lot of money invested in that top position. So we're going to see how this is all going to pan out. Ravens are certainly in that position too, as far as some of the moves they're making with free agency. I really don't know what the Bengals are doing. It looks like they make like a good move here and then like a head scratcher there. And obviously I'm going to be a homer and like everything that the Steelers do, but that would be very unbecoming of me if I didn't and crap all over the Browns, Bengals, and Ravens too. So we'll see how all this ends up shaping up. It should be, I continue to look at this news. It's something that hopefully when you listen to this program as well, it helps just take your mind away from some of the other things going on in the world right now. So we hope everyone out there is doing okay. We have our usual mantra: be safe, be good. We'll catch you later or whatnot. But before I even get to that, Brian, thanks once again for joining me today, and also taking time out of your schedule as we're all running around with chickens with our heads cut off, trying to figure out what we're doing, mostly in isolation.
Absolutely, and let me just reiterate, we've been joking a little bit about the COVID crisis and all that, but, do the right things, do your social distancing. I will give credit to Walgreens as well. I went to a Walgreens this morning and I had to pick something up, and they've actually put lines in their line that are all separated by 6 feet and basically are saying, stand here. So pay attention to that stuff, because there's a lot of people who didn't care and weren't paying any attention. But
It's like the PSA. It's just like if it looks like it's unsafe, then don't risk it. Don't risk it. Don't take any risks out there. And we'll leave everyone off with something that's a little more lighthearted than we're all over the place, peaks and valleys, light and darkness. Cam Hayward, he went out on Twitter just a little bit ago, and yes, sir, let's go at Chris Wormley and Matt Judon, who's with the Ravens, tagged, right? Was it transition or franchise tag for Judon? One of their pass rushing specialists, right? The old Terrell Suggs role. He goes, he doesn't like you, Cam. He doesn't. So Cam's like, I don't need him to like me. I just need him the ball out versus y'all now. And shame on Cam Hayward for not saying yins. Boo.
Yes. Well, but you got to throw in Wormley's response, which was, yes, I do. It's you who I don't like anymore, #enemy.
Exactly. So that university up north, right? All right. My name's Joe. His name's Brian. And until next time, folks, we do encourage you, as I said earlier, to be safe, be good, and we'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.